The Fight Game Podcast back for edition number 3.
Oh.
I am Steve Milhouse along with the lovely looking Mike Finch. And Mike Finch, how are you on this beautiful Wednesday?
I am awesome, Steve. Some good fights last weekend, and I think we're about to have some better ones even this Saturday. So I'm pumped, and a lot of MMA news this weekend actually. So yeah, a lot going on.
A lot of news. We can really go just about anywhere, but we'll go with the more recent news and former light heavyweight champion Johnny Bones Jones. 18 months of court supervision, 18 months of probation, I do apologize, and has to go to 72 appearances for charity and youth-related activities.
Mm.
A lot of people, been a mixed bag in the MMA world, media, the public, and fighters alike. Your thoughts on the light heavyweight champion, the former UFC light heavyweight champion, and his punishment?
Well, it's tough to say that was a fair punishment because of it's not John's first time in trouble with the law. Obviously, he totaled his a Rolls Royce a couple of years ago. He's had a couple issues. So this being not his first criminal trial or time getting arrested here, I think that that it was a little light. I'm not a big fan of hit and run. I mean, yes, he maybe was, just high. They found a bull in his car, right? And maybe he was even, still dabbling with cocaine. Who knows? But he hit this woman and she broke her arm, I believe. And then he flees the vehicle, and then he comes back to the vehicle, grabs a wad of cash, and then flees the vehicle again. That's cowardly, you know what I mean? So one of the least cowardly men on the planet, but that's a different kind of cowardly. And I was shocked when I heard that, and I really expected there to be more of a punishment than 72 hours of community service and probation. Do I want to see Jon Jones fight as soon as possible? Absolutely. So there's a good and a bad side to it, but I think that at least I was a little surprised that he admitted to a felony and got community service.
That just seems like a lot of people are very, very upset about the fact that he did admit guilt, and this is all he got.
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation yesterday, but with a good friend of mine who was an avid MMA fan, and he was really upset about it. And he's like, what the heck? He's like, that's all the punishment he gets. And he's like, that's superstar treatment. And I'm like, I couldn't agree more. And just because if that's me or you, we're going
to the slammer.
We're going to jail. That's a foul. Run an accident, hit a pregnant woman, broken arm.
We don't have good lawyers either, though. I mean, I think we're comparable.
My lawyer's not bad. He's actually pretty good. I'll give him a little credit.
Okay. I don't have a lawyer, so there you go.
always have one in your back pocket, Mike Finch. But no, I look at it, Mike, and it's a hard situation because he is the face of one of the faces of the UFC. He's one of the most popular fighters in the world. Pound for pound, the best fighter in the world today.
Sure.
On his way to being the greatest of all time, in my mind as well. If he continues the path that he's on, I think the punishment should have been more. I would have put him in jail because I think he needs that reality. He needs the wake-up call. It's like, how many more mistakes?
No more rehab, no more breaks. I agree. That's what I expected, at least. Felony hit and run, everything that was going on with it, him coming back to the car. It sounded like something well beyond anywhere he's been before. So that's what I expected as well. And yeah, what you're saying about him being the number one pound for pound fighter, I agree with as well. I always thought that Jon Jones could beat Cain Velasquez, that Jon Jones could beat even like Fabricio Verdum. That's a tough fight now. Fabricio Verdum, Jon Jones, that's an awesome fight. But I always thought that, for a long time at least, that Jon Jones was the best fighter in the world. And then pound for pound, you would have to say so, right? If the light heavyweight champion can beat the heavyweight champion, I would say I would give him that title, So yeah, John's earned it. And, on the flip side of all this, we do get to see him back sooner.
And that's the thing too, and that's the thing I look at. Even if he comes back, there's really no big indication he will be back. I thought that at first, and then I see Dana White was at the court hearing yesterday. So
Right.
that hit thinking like, okay, they're going to do their investigation. However ho-hum you think this so-called investigation will be. We'll
Right.
put that in quotes because we really don't know how they will be, considering this is one of their guys. This is one of their money makers. Regardless of the relationship, Jon Jones makes them a lot of money.
Right. No.
John's lost a lot here.
Yep.
How concerned is he going to be? That is my big thing. I would have put him in jail for those reasons. Too much a DUI. He had another driving incident right before that. Then you have this. Then you have the cocaine incident before the fight with Cormier that got revealed after the fact. Then he's like, I'm going to be clean. Nothing. I'm changed. Da, 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 da. Rehab for one day. Make that of what you will. And then this happens.
Right.
So it's like, I think he needed a lesson. He didn't get the lesson taught here. If this was in a state like where he, formerly lived in New York, I think he gets the hammer throwing at him. But it's Albuquerque, New Mexico. Let's just be realistic. The court system in Albuquerque, New Mexico is a little bit different than the court system in New York. The court system's messed up in general, and that's for another time. But New Mexico to New York, apples and oranges.
I agree.
So you look at that. He got, like, the judge says he got really lucky. Then why didn't you slam him to make a point? Okay, he got really lucky, but you could have slammed him.
Right.
The prosecution could have been, you know what? The district attorney could have slammed him. I don't know why the DA didn't do that. That's on New Mexico. For everyone that's complaining about that, blame New Mexico here. Don't blame Jon Jones. Of course he's going to accept that deal. I don't blame him. I would too, and I think you would.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, like you said, Mike, he is back. And it seems like he will be back. I would be very shocked if we don't see Jon Jones fight again. We'll put that out there. I think he fights again. And there's a certain date, it seems like, that just kind of coincided with that court appearance, April 23rd, 2016, Madison Square Garden. But we'll get into that a little later. But it seems like this is ripe for Jones's return, and I think he does come back.
I agree. I think that excuse me. I think that Jon Jones makes his return. I was worried about it before because of the potential prison sentence that he was facing and if he would ever come back because of that. But because of the current circumstances, I couldn't see a situation where Jon Jones wouldn't come back. And that's good for the sport of MMA. You don't want your pound for pound king leaving. George St. Pierre sort of left it on that note as one of the greatest fighters in the world, the greatest welterweight to ever fight. And I think that, Jon Jones, it's way better for the company to have him fight until a new champion is crowned, from the UFC standpoint. That's how the business is going to work the best is if Jon doesn't go out, just as in his prime, in the middle of his prime as champion, and for the fans, of course, too, we want to see who's the best fighter in the world. That's what everybody wants to know. That's what the UFC makes all their money on is showing who the best fighter in the world is at each weight. And, I think Jon Jones is that guy, has been that guy at 205 and could be that guy at heavyweight. And I would like to see him compete in both weight classes before he retires.
And I think we will. And there's no doubt about where he ranks and so on and so forth. And a lot of people question too, the interim title. Why didn't they just make an interim title? Why did they need to strip him? Now he got off. The UFC made the right move. They made a statement here, like, I thought in a good way initially. You know what? We're going to take this away from you.
Yeah.
You don't deserve this. You're not being a world champion. A champion is supposed to be exemplary, exemplify good conduct, be a role model to the community, and be a good ambassador for the sport. He hasn't been there.
I agree.
Crashing, with your Bentley, Rolls Royce, crash that into a pole, get a DUI. Then
he's been a hypocrite, Steve. He's been a little bit of a hypocrite,
Exactly. And, Jon's very, how do I say this? Moody. I'll put it this way when it comes to the media. And I've always had good relations with Jon. Now, the couple times I've talked to him, always been great with me. I know some instances he's not been to other media members that we've seen, and he's made those public. But, my dealings, he's been a great guy, exemplary, very, very funny and articulate when we've had conversations. And I look at it as this is do or die here for Jon Jones. He's not. He's on his last chance, as far as I'm concerned. I can't see how the UFC can tolerate this going forward.
Well, the UFC did punish him. The UFC did end up punishing him and did take his belt and did crown a new champion and did everything that I think they were supposed to do on their end. So he was also punished from the organization and fittingly so.
Exactly. They did the right thing. He left them with no alternative. They had to do what he had to do. They stripped him. It was the right move because you don't know, he could have went to jail. And the fact they couldn't tolerate him acting like an idiot.
Yep.
Any longer. So they made the right move. There's no doubt about that. The right move was made. So, but now this shadow looming. Now we got UFC 192, and we'll just jump right into this just because I think this is it's a hot button thing leading into this fight. UFC 192 Saturday night from the Toyota Center in beautiful Houston, Texas. The main event, light heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier against Alexander Gustafsson. And does this affect both guys? Because I look at this, Mike, and I don't know how it does it. Cormier and Gustafsson, I talked to both of them. They're saying the right things, but I just still don't believe them.
What do you mean by that?
I don't believe them in saying they're just focused on this fight. The more I hear Cormier talk, it's always about Jon Jones. He told me, well, everyone always asks me questions. Fair enough. But we still know he's in your mind. He is in your brain. And he's in Gustafsson's brain, even though Alex is trying to say the same thing. At the end of the day, I think Jon Jones is in their heads. And that's why it makes it. The fight is good to begin with, but I love this extra layer of intrigue heading into this. I love drama. It gives, as Tyron Woodley told me, us guys in the media like drama. We like the story. I love it. This is great.
Right. No, I think it is good. And I think that Daniel Cormier is right in the fact that he's right in the fact that he's continually led to talking about Jon Jones. So people are not only asking him questions, but even in the general area of, the history of that title, he has to bring up how he lost to the champion. He has to face those questions because Jon Jones beat him fair and square. And I think that, I think that it would be foolish for either guy to not talk about Jon at all or try to avoid it because I think that's the fight they're going to be facing in 2016 if they have the belt. Potentially their next fight is against Jon Jones because of what we just saw happen. So I think that it could be Cormier Jones or Gustafsson Jones in April, like you were saying.
Either fight, it's either the winner is facing Jon Jones. No offense, we'll talk about Evans and Bader in a moment, but I feel bad for those guys. I'm looking at that in a hot minute, but no, this is, and I respect both guys, but you look at it and it's like this. Now there's a Jon Jones shadow, right, just looming on this title fight, and I think it has to be in their heads. How can it not be? You could say it's not, but it is. Of course you're going to say the right things. Of course they're not going to come out and admit, well, Jon's really in my head. Right. Of course they're not going to say that. I wouldn't say it.
No, not at all. And I don't know if Jon's in their head. I don't know if Jon's in their head per se. I think they're both focused on each other. When you're going to get in a fist fight, and you're not focused on who you're about to get in that fist fight with, and they're a professional fighter at the top of the game, you're already toast. So I think that they're both focused.
Exactly. And, but I love this main event. A lot of people criticizing the main event. They're like, well, he didn't deserve this opportunity. Referring to Gustafsson. He lost his last fight. He got knocked out by Anthony Johnson. But who else is at 205 pounds? I would have went with Ryan Bader. I understand the UFC's position. Okay, Bader isn't a draw. Not yet. I thought what he did at 187, I thought the post-fight presser, Cormier initiated that. Bader defended himself, which I respect it. You're getting called out. That's your manhood. Right. You have to go up there and you have to say something. But business-wise, at the end of the day, this is unfortunately a business. You have to make money. It's not always what I deserve. It's how is it going to affect my bottom line?
I agree.
Fight, regardless of what you think, Gustafsson's the #1 ranked light heavyweight in the world, whether we like it or not. Yes, his best fight is against a fight he lost, but you know what? He almost beat the pound-for-pound great. I had him winning the fight, and so did a lot of other people. So
I did not. I had Jones winning that 5th round, and that sealed it. It was 2-2 heading into the 5th in my book. But here's the reality. Johnny Hendricks got passed up by Carlos Condit for the title shot. Miesha Tate got passed up by Holly Holm for the title shot. I mean, this is not just happening in the light heavyweight division. This is, the UFC is a business. They have to, the same thing you just said, they have to make the right decision for their business. Now, on the flip side of that, it's unfortunate in the Gustafsson situation because he is coming off of a loss. But what that honestly reflects is the shallowness of this division right now. If Rampage had won a fight in the UFC, or another fight rather in the UFC, he could be up there. If OSP didn't lose his last fight to Glover Teixeira, he could have been up there for a title shot. I personally would have rather seen them shelf the belt for a little bit, do Gustafsson versus Bader, winner gets title shot. But from a business standpoint, they want their belt defended. So it does make sense to me. Even though I do feel for Ryan Bader, even though I do feel for Johnny Hendricks and Miesha Tate, these decisions do make sense to me.
no,
I'm losing you a little, Steve. I'm losing you a little bit. I don't have your audio feed.
I got you.
There you go.
But no, you look at it in this is a hard one, because it goes to that difference of what is deserved and the bottom line.
Yeah.
You always look at it that way. I think if they would have went immediately with Cormier Bader, I think it could have done okay.
Mm-hmm.
This draws more buys. Am I saying this is going to do 5, 6, 700,000 buys? No. I'm not saying that at all, and I will give a buy rate prediction at the end of the show. But I agree with the call. This was the right call. Now, if Bader gets by Evans, and we'll get into that in a moment, I think we have a different story here. But just looking at this fight in particular, this is, I think, and I asked both guys this question if this was a carbon copy, and I asked Cormier this question, actually, if he sees a lot of similarities between Gustafsson and Jones, just due to the reach and the style of how they fight, and he's like, absolutely not. So John's the better fighter. Alex has a little bit better Alex has better boxing, but that's really it. He doesn't have that good of wrestling as compared to Jon does. And I'm like, okay, I'm like that, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I could see that point. And there's so many different layers. I think Alex presents different challenges than Jon. I think the boxing will be the key. Gustafsson has great wrestling. I think that will be a key as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Gustafsson can I think he keeps the range better than Jones in terms of the stand-up. So I think if Gustafsson can control the distance, come out early, establish the jab. If he can just pepper Cormier with that jab all day, Gustafsson could do circles around Daniel Cormier all day. He could do it for 25 minutes and not have a problem doing it. And he can pick his shots when he wants to throw them.
Depending on how Cormier decides to fight, and I do think Cormier is going to apply the Cain Velasquez style game plan, the same one we saw him use against Jon Jones, the same one we saw him use against Rumble Johnson. Now, if you rewatch that Jon Jones fight, that was probably the best Daniel Cormier I've ever seen. And I say that because of the way he was moving his body, his speed, his timing, his explosive ability. It's the same thing I said about Chad Mendes when Chad Mendes fought Jose Aldo. Though they lost to the pound-for-pound kings in these fights, they came out on their best foot. Now, in the Rumble fight, I don't think Daniel was on his best foot. Rumble tagged him in the first, 30 seconds of the fight, put him on his face. And then other punching exchanges, Rumble tagged him with a head kick. Rumble was hurting Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier was in grave danger when he was in exchanges with Alexander Gustafsson, so he needed to take him down. Of course, he did get a hold of him. Of course, he did take him down. And when you got that car parked on top of you, you're not going anywhere. So I think that's the problem for Gustafsson. If Gustafsson gets taken down, are we confident that he can stand up back to his feet? the more I see of Gustafsson's training, he doesn't look as muscular or as in shape as he looked in the Jon Jones fight. He is wrestling with other Olympic wrestlers, which is very, very important that he gets those big guys. He's got Latifi in his camp, who's a fire engine himself, just like Cormier. So really, really good to get a lot of rounds in with those guys. And if he is performing well against those guys in the gym, that could play a major factor. But I can't help but think that Cormier gets on top of Gustafsson and starts laying down some ground and pound. If this stays on the feet and they kickbox, Gustafsson is better. Absolutely. Not only is he better skill-wise, but his arms are twice as long and his legs are twice as long. And he's very, very tall, 6'5". So, yes, Gustafsson will out-kickbox Daniel Cormier. Can he do that with the forward pressure and clinching ability of Cormier? I'm going to guess no, and I'm going to guess Daniel Cormier either takes him all 5 or is able to put him away late with ground and pound or another rear naked choke like he did to Anthony Rumble Johnson.
Gustafsson has better wrestling than Anthony Johnson. And
let's remember, I disagree.
Wow.
Rumble Johnson wrestled his whole life. Rumble Johnson was really, really good wrestler. If you check out his 170 fights, how he's owning dudes with that sprawl, he is really hard to take down.
It was a 170-pound man fighting it what he should have been fighting it. That was like a dinosaur fighting little rabbits.
Is that right?
It was dinosaur fighting rabbits. If you look at those, they always show, and I feel bad for Charlie Brenneman, but they always show Anthony Johnson and Charlie Brenneman fight. I covered that fight, and I'm like, there's no way these two should be in the cage against each other. Let's just be serious for a minute. But no, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. But remember, Cormier got taken down a lot by Jon Jones.
Cormier got taken down by Jon Jones when he was tired. The reason why Cormier was getting taken down was different. The second thing is Jon Jones is the best wrestler in MMA. People didn't understand that before the fight. I kept telling everybody Jon Jones is going to be the one taking Daniel Cormier down. Daniel Cormier is not going to take Jon Jones down. Nobody believed me until they saw the fight.
Wow.
Jon Jones has made a career of owning wrestlers. How did Ryan Bader and Jon Jones go? It looked like a child was trying to take Jon Jones down. It looked like a high schooler was trying to take Jon Jones down. The way he slammed his forehead into the mat and savagely beat that man. So I think that the difference between Jon Jones wrestling and Gustafsson's wrestling is significant. And the reason why Gustafsson was able to take him down in that fight was a timing thing, a striking timing thing, where Jones was getting used to just striking with Gustafsson, was not prepared for that level change, and Gustafsson got him at the right moment with that takedown. If they fought again, Jon Jones would take Gustafsson down, and Daniel Cormier is about to. And Rumble Johnson is a better wrestler than Alexander Gustafsson.
You're fired up today. You are very.
This is me fired up. You'll see. One of these podcasts, I'll really get fired up.
You're bringing the thunder today. I really like it. I like when the thunder is brought to this podcast. No, I like what you're saying, because I do agree with a lot. I think Cormier does apply that pressure. I think he get from the outset. It's whoever controls the pace from the outset, I think wins the fight. Like you said, Cormier goes in there and does what he should do, and go in there and just get in the clinch. Throw a lot of knees, a lot of dirty boxing, old school Randy Couture, current Cain Velasquez. Do that. I think he can win this fight in a lap circle. I think he can just run laps all day. But if Gustafsson from the outset throws some kicks, he establishes that jab, the striking, and people say, oh, Johnson is better striking than Gustafsson. Johnson has more power, but Anthony Johnson isn't that technical. He does a lot of looping shots where Gustafsson's more controlling of his shots. And you're seeing that more out of Cormier. A lot of people don't give Daniel a lot of credit for that too. And John, if you have to rank striking, I go Gustafsson, Cormier, Johnson, Jones. Still does striking. But you think
Jones is not as good of a striker as those three?
Absolutely not. Not even close.
I think Jon Jones is the best striker.
He does a lot of elbows. When John gets in the clinch, John is in close distance. I love how he utilizes the elbows. And I wish he would do more. If Jon Jones just did that, he's doing it now and he wins every fight. But back to this fight, I think DC wins. I think he will get the takedown. There will be a couple of points where that takedown does happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think he wins the fight, but this fight will be a lot closer than people think. DC wins, but it'll be more entertaining than I think people are giving it credit for.
It's just so hard when you're in a 25-minute fight and that big guy is trying to wear you down. I think that when Cormier is on top of Gustafsson, he can really, really take a lot of the fight out of him. And that's going to be a big, big key is, can Gustafsson return to his feet? Obviously, we both agree that we think Cormier will get on top in this fight. But if Gustafsson can pop back up like he's shown in the past, I think that this could be very, very competitive. Again, Gustafsson has to use the cage, rather the whole space of the cage, and really move in this fight and counter-strike, lead with the jab. And I think that Daniel Cormier needs to apply that Cain Velasquez approach, moving your head, throwing those shots off of the straight shots, moving his head, coming over the top, and then going right in clinch, leading with his forehead, blasting right through the chest, getting into those clinches. And every time they clinch, I see Daniel Cormier continually working Gustafsson and getting him down to the mat. There are not a lot of guys who are as good with the takedowns in the clinch as Daniel Cormier. I don't think Daniel Cormier out-wrestles him from outside. I don't think Daniel Cormier even shoots from the outside. Unless he catches a kick, I think that he's going to clinch and then take Gustafsson down. So if Gustafsson can stay on the feet and keep his back off the fence, it's a fight. If he can't, I see Cormier overwhelming him.
You got to give me a pick, though. I'm going DC. It seems like you're leaning Cormier. I'm really feeling it. But I like how you try to skirt away from a prediction.
No, I'll give a prediction. I'm not hiding from a prediction.
Come on, son.
I already wait. Hang on. Let's go back. I said that Cormier would finish him late, by a rear naked choke or a TKO or win a decision. Do you recall me saying this?
Okay, let's see. You can't give 3. It's either someone wins. How do they win? Not you gave every scenario he can win by.
What? Okay, he's going to win by being on top of Gustafsson. Gustafsson is going to be very, very tired. He's going to be punching him. If Gustafsson gives up a choke, that's what Cormier is going to take. If Gustafsson just covers his head, that's what Cormier is going to take. I'm telling you the exact situation that's going to play down, but I don't know if he'll finish by TKO. So I will go with late TKO. Does that make you happy?
You got to give how the guy wins. Come on. You're better than it. Come on now, the co-main event was – this whole card, by the way, is just godly phenomenal. I just want to get that out the window. But I love the co-main event. A match that's been in the making for a very long time, since their days in college wrestling. Johnny Hendricks, Tyron Woodley. I feel bad for Hendricks here. Hendricks deserved the title shot. Should have gotten a title shot. But he should have been facing Robbie Lawler instead of Carlos Condit. But that's for here nor there. Tyron Woodley has been calling for this fight forever. Condit's getting the title shot. The UFC makes this fight basically a hometown fight for Johnny Hendricks, just like for Daniel Cormier as well, based on Tyron Woodley. And God, I love this fight. This fight is so even. Both, I don't know who wins. I don't know how they win. They're both good in wrestling. They both have good striking. I think this is just going to come down to will. Who's going to want it more? Because they're pretty even heading into this co-main event.
I would agree. I think that Johnny Hendricks has that winner's mindset, that just a little bit exceeds Tyron Woodley. I saw Tyron Woodley get shut down by Rory McDonald, and that brought up some red flags of how confident I could be in betting on Tyron Woodley, because it's not like he couldn't have thrown some big shots and put himself in the fire and gotten back into that fight. It was a mental thing. He was getting back down, he was getting outstruck, and he just sort of shut down. I don't think you'll ever do that to Johnny Hendricks. So that little advantage actually does make me lean towards Johnny Hendricks. Do I think Tyron Woodley could land that big right hand? Absolutely. Do I think Tyron Woodley can get on top? Absolutely. What I saw from Johnny Hendricks, especially in that George St. Pierre fight, is that he does have good takedown defense. Josh Koscheck was also trying to take him down a lot, and he does have very good takedown defense. So if Tyron Woodley can't get on top of him, and it's a striking bout, I think that the pressure of the wrestling with Johnny Hendricks and also the threat of that overhand right are going to be big problems for Tyron Woodley. And in this fight, I'm leaning Johnny Hendricks' decision because I do see, if I had to guess wrestling goes, I would guess that it's Johnny Hendricks. Now, here's something that is going to make this fight competitive. I don't know if Johnny Hendricks can hold Tyron Woodley down. And I hope that a lot of what Tyron Woodley is sharpening in this training camp is getting used to standing up, getting the heavy, strong guy off of you and creating separation, getting out of the clinch, getting back to striking. That's where he has his best chance. I also think Tyron Woodley has a good chance if he can make this a dirty fight, clinch him up. Do a lot of clinching against the fence with Johnny Hendricks. Every time you're outside, you're trying to show him your speed, try to show him how fast he can cover the distance forward and come back, because there is no welterweight in the division who can leap forward, land a shot, and leap out at an angle like Tyron Woodley. If he could do that to Johnny Hendricks, it's going to be a very, very interesting fight. I'm going to guess that Johnny Hendricks is able to finish a couple double leg takedowns, score another decision. He keeps talking about how exciting he wants to be. Maybe he will get in some crazy exchanges, and who knows who's going to hit the canvas if that happens.
And, I like what you said at the beginning about Hendricks he's used to these big these big fights, the big matches. And Woodley admitted that to me. He's like, well, Johnny's been in these bigger spots. He's a big game guy, big fight guy. You get him in a big fight or a big match, you see the best Johnny Hendricks. He somehow gets the W. A lot of people thought he won the second Robbie Lawler fight. I actually tend to agree with that. I thought Hendricks had done enough. You could score it either way. I don't see no big deal if you scored it for Lawler. Your scoring is different from mine. You could make a case Lawler won. You could make a case Hendricks won. You could even say that about the first fight. It seemed like it was 2-2 going into the fifth. Hendricks pulled away with a strong fifth round where Lawler really faded down the stretch. And the second fight, they were both right there, and just depends on how you score, and everyone does score differently. And it's where I like the advantage in the fight, because Hendricks has been there. He's used to the big game, the big fight, the big match. Woodley faltered when he faced Rory McDonald. But then you say, well, you know what? He beat Carlos Condit. Regardless if you want what you think, Woodley was winning the fight anyway. He had won the first round. He was winning the second round when it happened. So, it seemed like Woodley was going to be on his way to a decision victory unless he stopped Condit or Condit pulled off a crazy late stoppage. This is a great fight. I think Woodley has a little more punching power, but they both have good power. The power is just about even. Striking is about.
Woodley has more? Do you remember all those Hendricks knockouts?
I remember Johnny Hendricks' knockouts. Don't get me wrong. They both have power.
Yeah.
They both bring the thunder. There's no about it.
See, that's what I think. It's like I would love to rely and just say Tyron Woodley's going to hit him on the chin, knock him out. But I think if they're banging 50-50 shot, I can't. It has serious power, serious speed, and he'll come over the top at a rate that you can't react to and catch you on that chin. And it takes one, and these guys are falling like Martin Kampmann.
That left hand is just absolutely vicious, and I think Hendricks wins. I think Hendricks wins by decision. This will be an entertaining fight. Don't get me wrong. I think the main event will be. This will be entertaining. I think both guys are going to bring it. I think they're both going to get takedowns. They're both going to get up from the takedowns. It's just going to come down to will. Who's going to want it more when you get to that third round? How will Woodley pace himself? He's a muscular guy. Can he pace himself for 3 hard rounds? That's the big question. He couldn't do it against Rory McDonald. Did he learn from that fight and bring it to this fight? So I'm going with Hendricks as well by unanimous decision, but it's going to be a knock. I think it's going to be a really good fight, and I think that'll be the fight of the night. I think it has a great shot, but every fight on this, most of these fights can be fight of the night if you really look at the card.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, a lot of really good fights. I mean, I think that this one, if they decide to strike more, could be fight of the night. If they decide to wrestle more, I think it's more of a battle of Johnny Hendricks trying to stay on top and pin Tyrone's shoulder blades to the mat because there's almost no threat of a submission from the bottom. This is unfortunate when wrestlers sort of use the jiu-jitsu only to defend and hold, as opposed to use it offensively. If Johnny was starting to guard, maybe he could finish the fight in the first. So his style, and it's also not Tyrone's style to be offensive off of his back. If Tyrone Woodley, instead of using a wrestling stand-up, could dive under a leg, do a sweep, I mean, there's a lot of jiu-jitsu options that Jose Aldo just shows time and time again, using his jiu-jitsu in reverse to stand up, to get a guy off of him, whatever. You go for a leg lock, they have to defend, you both stand right back up. You saw Josh Barnett just try that against Roy Nelson. So, I mean, I wish that Tyrone had more jiu-jitsu. That would help me in this fight, but I don't think he's going to be able to get Johnny off of him in that full guard position easily, at least.
No, I agree with that 100%. Let's get to – this could be there's 3 main events on this card, and this is just unbelievable. And then you get the third from the top, which is unbelievable. You don't usually see him in this spot. Former light heavyweight champion Sugar Rashad Evans against Ryan Bader, and we were talking about this fight a little earlier. Rashad has been seen in almost 2 years, 2 torn ACLs. Bader, 4 in a row. Last fought Phil Davis. A questionable split decision, but he got the win. Questionable, controversial. He still won. Whether you like it or not, ladies and gentlemen, he won the fight.
Yep.
You may not be a Ryan Bader fan, but he won.
Yep.
Bader thinks he should be fighting for the title, but he told me, and we have the podcast up on Stitcher and iTunes and SoundCloud, and thank you everyone for listening so far. If he was going to get a fight that wasn't going to be the title fight, this is the fight he wanted. Former champion, a big win over Rashad gets me to where I want to get 5 in a row, dominating, beating a former world champion. I should get the title. And then Rashad is. Go ahead.
I think from both sides it makes a lot of sense, Steve. I think that it makes sense for Bader, of course, but it also makes a lot of sense for Rashad. He's coming back in. They're putting him against the guy who is not credited enough, not seen as prestigious enough to get a title shot and get a chance to be the champion. So it would legitimize Ryan Bader, or if Rashad beats Ryan Bader, he's right in the mix. Who else are you going to give the title shot to? So I think that it's great for both guys. Now, one of the reasons why Ryan Bader didn't get a title shot, I truly believe, is that the UFC couldn't see him as a marketable champion at this moment. Can you imagine a Cormier Bader fight that's really, really close and goes to a split decision or something? I mean, that wouldn't make Daniel Cormier look good in general. You know what I mean? So if Cormier and Gustafsson's a crazy fight, that's okay. But if Ryan Bader were to beat Cormier or become the champion, it actually might hurt the UFC as a business. So they understand that. They're not going to take that risk. They're going to put him against Rashad. If he beats Rashad in impressive fashion, for sure. But I can't imagine he does that. I imagine this being a very close fight. A lot of this is going to be about how much of the old Rashad Evans we're going to see, and are there any new tools in Rashad's game that he hasn't showed us yet. I think he's going to wrestle. He's a great wrestler. If he gets on top of Ryan Bader, he could do well. On the outside, he has to use his speed. I was watching the camp show, and Ryan Bader's camp is talking about setting a pace and how they're going to set a pace like they've never set before. That's what they need to do. Because if Rashad Evans is faster than Ryan Bader, he'll probably win the fight. If Ryan Bader can keep it competitive striking, own in the clinch, and take Rashad down just maybe 1 or 2 times, even just need a couple takedowns and just keep him off of him, he could win the decision. Now, Rashad doesn't get taken down. We haven't seen people taking Rashad down. People don't win against Rashad by holding him down. Nobody does that. So this would be the first time if Ryan Bader is able to execute that. Do I think he will? No. I think it's going to be a very competitive fight. I think it's going to be a very close fight. If Rashad Evans is still Rashad Evans, then I think he wins. But I could also see Rashad coming out, being a little slower, having a little trouble like Ryan Bader is, and is on a streak like Ryan Bader is, and is with confidence like Ryan Bader has. And he could sort of create a Nogueira fight where Rashad stalls and hangs out on the outside and is trying to not get in a firefight, just flicking his jab. I could see that fight happening. So I'm going to guess that this fight goes to a decision. I'm going to say that Rashad Evans takes it, but I could definitely see, if Rashad is a shell of his former self, Bader taking this fight. So it's going to be a close one, I believe. I think Rashad maybe will get 3 takedowns, win the decision.
And this is where I fight where I think Bader has to press, and like you said during the countdown show, that's what this camp was talking about during the countdown show. Press from the outset. If he presses Rashad Evans to the outset, controls the fight, this is an easy fight for Ryan Bader. 2 years is 2 years. I don't care what anybody says. If you're not fighting for 2 years, practice is practice. They're not going 110% at every practice. They're not, it's different facing a guy like Ryan Bader compared to other guys. Just, you're not facing your opponent. You're facing a sparring partner. They're not going to be giving you all. You're supposed to dominate the sparring partner. That's right. How you've done sparring. You know how it goes. And I just think in this instance, I think if Bader does that, this is an easy night at the office for Ryan Bader. I think Rashad needs to have a good pace, but don't blow your, like they say, don't blow your load. Don't have an adrenaline.
The Randy Couture quote.
Don't blow your wad. Don't blow your wad in the first 2-3 minutes of the fight. If Rashad comes out at a good pace, sets the pace, even if Bader does, as long as Bader doesn't get him in the clinch, gets him up against the cage, if Rashad can keep that fight on the outside for the first couple minutes, get his timing, I think this is going to be Rashad Evans. But if Bader controls the pace from the outset, gets in Rashad's grill, stays on him, like I said, get some takedowns, get some ground and pound. Maybe, okay, Rashad gets back up. Then start landing some more shots. Land some more shots. Get another takedown. I'm going with the upside here. I know a lot of people aren't picking Bader. I'm going Ryan Bader. I think Bader gets a decision. I think Bader looks great getting a decision. And I still think he's not getting a title shot because Jon Jones will be next. And I think we'll probably get Bader in...
Wow, I think...
We'll probably get Bader and Rumble Johnson. I think we'll be next after that.
Damn. Okay.
No, I don't want to crush...
If they give it to Jon, that would make a lot of sense.
You got to give it to Jones. I think that just makes a lot of sense. But a couple other little... So your main picks. You're going Daniel Cormier. You're going Johnny Hendricks. And you're going Rashad Evans.
Boom.
I'm going with the champ. We agree on the first two. And the last one, I'm going with Ryan Bader. But the rest of this card, this is a great card. You look at it, you got the other notable fights. The main card kicks off Jessica Ai and Juliana Pena. I don't know how Juliana Pena is the favorite. Only one fight in the last 2 years. Okay. This is a big fight for Jessica Ai because they're really trying to groom Pena here. You could see where they're trying to go. Okay, if they beat her, if she beats Jessica, one more fight, she fights for the belt. It's exactly where I see them going here. They're really. I would still personally would have went with Miesha Tate, but that's for when we do a preview show next month for the next pay-per-view. But I like that fight. Then you got the headliner in the prelims, the returning Ali Bogatinov against Benavidez and Joseph Benavidez. And how will Bogatinov look off the juice? That will be off the EPO. So I'm intrigued by that. That's a good flyweight title fight. Two former title contenders. I feel bad for Benavidez. He's like stuck between a rock and a hard place. Yeah. If you're him, do you go back to 35 or do you stay at 25?
That's a good question. I mean, the 25 division is the most open, I would say. So I would say the 25 division because it's the most open. That being said, there's a king at the top of that mountain who keeps sending everybody rolling back down to the bottom. You know what I mean? So I think that Mighty Mouse is one of the best fighters in the world. And I think that, it's going to be a while before anybody beats him at that weight. But yeah, I would say 125 is the better weight class for him.
I agree, and he was too small for 35. I thought, but if I'm Benavidez, I got to look at it as I've had 2 shots at the belt. I got knocked out in the last one. But I'm beating everybody. What is it doing for him? It's just collecting a paycheck. You're not advancing. To where if you go to 35, I would wait till see what happens between Dillashaw and Cruz. If Dillashaw wins, then Benavidez, I think, has to think about it.
I think the fight isn't going down. I think Cruz is going to get injured again. Sucks. But at this point, how could you predict that Cruz is actually going to show up to the fight until he shows up to the fight? How you know what I mean? I think the chances are that he's going to get injured.
Wow. I talked to Dominic. Dominic was in good spirits, and I'm going to release that article next week that we did. I talked to him. I've been pushing this article back. It's been so hectic. I'm going to have the article out like early next week, and he's ready. The tone of his voice, he felt like he convinced me, and I'm a hard guy to convince on that, but he seems like he's ready. He may get injured, who knows? But if I'm looking at it, if I'm Benavidez, I got to really think long. Unless if Cejudo loses to Formiga next month in Mexico City, then I think the UFC has no choice but to go back to Benavidez. But Benavidez has a couple options. See how the Cejudo fight goes with Formiga, and see what happens on Dillashaw and Cruz. Because you can't do a third fight with Cruz. Him and Dillashaw, I think, would be they're teammates, but it seems like Dillashaw, and that's just for another conversation, but it seems like Dillashaw's more Team Ludwig these days than more Team Alpha Male, even though he's still doing stuff at the gym in Sacramento. And we'll go over really quickly. 2 big fights, the Japan card this past weekend. Uriah Hall looked absolutely fantastic. One of the best finishes I've seen in a long time. And Josh Barnett, almost 2 years off. No big deal. I'm just going to go smash Roy Nelson. Looks suave, looks svelte, and kick Roy Nelson's ass in a very entertaining main event from Tokyo, from Saitama on Saturday night.
Absolutely. Yeah. That Gegard Mousasi Uriah Hall fight was a very, very cool fight. Now, from the get-go, I thought that Gegard Mousasi had significantly better jiu-jitsu, significantly better grappling overall over Uriah Hall, and that he would use that to win the fight. He takes him down in about 10 seconds with that high leg, that treetop, and then gets on top, mounts him, takes his back, almost choked him out in that first round. I think that Gegard proved to everybody what most of us suspected, was that he was the better grappler. Of course, it comes out in the second round, and right in the beginning of the second round, Uriah Hall goes right to the A-list techniques, hits him with the jumping spinning back kick to the face, follows up with a flying knee that couldn't have been better timed, and then follows up with some ground and pound. To Gegard's credit, he was doing the right thing. When he got hit, he went back, and Uriah Hall was coming in. He tried to bury his head. That's what you should do, but the problem was where his head was buried was very vulnerable. Uriah was able to drop a couple elbows and a lot of punches on his head and get the stoppage. He almost needed to put his head in between Uriah's legs like he was trying to do a takedown to protect himself. So he was so rocked, I don't think he was able to comprehend quite where he was at, and wasn't able to get those techniques off. So I was very, very surprised at that finish. But I had to say that, going into the fight, I thought the only way Uriah Hall is going to win this fight, wheel kick KO, some crazy kick. You know what I mean? Because it seemed that Gegard Mousasi is the better boxer. He'll hit you with that flick jab all night, move around, and his grappling, I think we all saw, was superior, despite the nice armbar attempt from Uriah Hall. So I think that if the fight had gone to the ground again, that might have been the death sentence for Uriah Hall. I really think that Gegard was going to close it out in that second round. He didn't get a chance to. He got a freaking heel to the face and then came crashing down to the mat after a kneecap followed that. So that was a very, very impressive finish from Uriah Hall. And I think that's just what Uriah needed, not necessarily in the rankings, but in his mind. I think that's what Uriah needed to do. He needed to come back and finish a guy and feel that effect that has on you, and it'll give you confidence, and I think that's the confidence that Uriah Hall needs to continually throw those techniques, to continually be that surprising, and to go that hard when the time is necessary, like it was in that fight, because he knew if he ended up on his back again, it could be bad.
It was just dirty. Mousasi was controlling the fight in the first round, almost had the stoppage. Could have even said it was a 10-8 if you're, just depending on how you view a 10-8. And the move came out. Hall didn't even set it up. And that's the one thing I liked about it too. He just did it. And I was talking to somebody about this, and it just seemed like it was destiny for Mousasi's head to be like that, so Hall can throw the knee. Just like, and I rewatched it after I had the conversation with my buddy, and I'm like, they just couldn't have been. It was like a pro wrestling thing there, even though it wasn't. I'm like, man, that was a great win for Uriah Hall. Man, that hit a letdown loss for Mousasi. It seemed like Mousasi can win here, another fight or two. Because if he wins that fight, he's gonna get, I think, the winner of, I don't even know. You get a winner with, maybe a rematch with Machida. Maybe you could have gone with the winner of Romero and Jacare. You could have really went with a couple different options there for Mousasi, and now Uriah Hall's in the conversation. We've finally seen Uriah Hall live up to his potential. We wanted to see this big fight, how he would react. Short notice, what would happen? And he did it, Mike. He went in there and fought to his potential. Yeah, it was a rough start. I thought he came out a little bit better in the second round, landed the kick, landed the knee. Now I think his confidence has to be sky high. This is Uriah Hall we saw during the Ultimate Fighter, and I'm really intrigued by what we see of him and Barnett. Barnett looked awesome.
Whoa. Before you go to Barnett, Steve, did you just say that you think Uriah Hall should fight the winner of Jacare and Yoel Romero?
No. I was talking if Mousasi had won. If Mousasi had won, that's what I would have done.
See, I still don't think so. I think Jacare is due for a title shot, and Yoel Romero is due for a title shot. The winner of that fight needs to be in a championship fight. No? There's
a certain Brazilian returning sometime in 2016. If Luke Rockhold wins, you didn't hear it here first. Just kind of keep that in the back of your mind.
I don't think Anderson Silva does very well in a fight against Luke Rockhold.
I don't either, but I don't either.
That's a good idea.
But as you know, Mike, it's all about the cheddar, baby. It's all about the cheddar. I don't think that fight happens either. But you have to go with what will be marketable, what will work. Anderson Silva in a title fight. I don't personally think they do it. I would like to see Silva and Michael Bisping. Then maybe you go the winner of that fight gets a title shot, and I think that fight will happen sooner rather than later. I think the Romero Jacare winner, you can go that route too against the winner of Rockhold and Weidman. You can't go wrong either way. But I think if Weidman loses, maybe Weidman gets a rematch.
Right.
Which I think would be well deserved for what Chris Weidman has done. Come on, beat the greatest, the one of the greatest of all time 2 times in a row. Beat Machida. Beat Vitor. He's beat 3 former world champions just like that in 4 fights. Like it was nothing. So
Chris Weidman is he's driving the tractor and he's running everybody over. He's killing everybody. So yes, Chris Weidman would deserve an immediate rematch, I think, especially if you're going to give Cain Velasquez one. I think you definitely give Chris Weidman one. Now, that being said, I believe Chris is going to win that fight. That is a tough fight. I don't think people are hyped up enough about that fight. Luke Rockhold is the man right now. Luke Rockhold has just demolished everybody he's fought. He looks like man against boy. It looks like those old Jon Jones fights. It looks like the Cain Velasquez fights. The way Luke Rockhold's able to dominate these guys is very special. That's going to be an awesome, awesome contest. Those are, those guys, Jacare and Yoel, I think those are the best fighters at 185 pounds right now. That being said, if Chris Weidman does win, I cannot see any other path besides giving Jacare Souza or Yoel Romero the title shot. I don't think the Anderson Silva fight makes sense. I think that they would give Anderson Michael Bisping or something like that because, quite frankly, I don't think ending his career on a note of getting, demolished by one of these young kids is the way to do it. I'm not saying that a prime Anderson would get demolished by these guys, but I am saying that today's Anderson would. His timing isn't there. All that being said, back to the matchup, I really think that Uriah Hall is going to start to transcend what he's done before and get a big fight. Absolutely, and he deserves it. I don't think he has the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu to deal with these guys like Yoel Romero and Jacare Souza. I think these guys are going to eat him alive. I think that Yoel Romero and Jacare Souza are right up there with Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold. And this proves to me, especially with now Hall is a big name, you still got Machida in the mix, you still got Gegard in the mix, you still got multiple great 185ers in the mix. I think 185 is the most stacked division in the UFC, bar none.
Yeah, you've been saying that for a while, and it's a good. I love that. I love that weight class. You got Tim Kennedy just lurking out there. You know, he's just shooting off guns and blowing away people. You got Bisping and Robert Whittaker coming up. There's a lot of talk about Silva and Bisping as well. You know, you still, you know, you got some intrigue. You got Vitor, Dan Henderson coming up here next month out in Brazil. So you got a lot of intriguing fights at 85 here coming up. Then you got, of course, the title fight at 194 at the end of the year. And we were going Barnett, and with Uriah Hall, maybe Taos Leites next, maybe. Close fight with Bisping. I could see maybe them going that route. Maybe a Tim Kennedy fight. I don't think that would be really too bad either, since a lot of controversy surrounding that fight with Yoel Romero. So I think there's some very intriguing fights coming up for one Uriah Hall. Like you said, I don't think he's ready for a Jacare or a Romero, but I think get him another fight or two, get him some more confidence, hone his skills a little bit more, then maybe we'll have a different conversation. Barnett looked awesome. I give Roy Nelson a lot of credit. He went 5 rounds. He did something a lot of people didn't think he would do. But I think, and this is no offense to Roy, but I think at this stage, Roy Nelson's no more than a very entertaining gatekeeper. You know, and it's unfortunate to say, but it seems like Roy at this stage, but Barnett, man, didn't look like he skipped a beat there. You know, he was gone 21 months, didn't miss a beat, lost some weight, and looked good. Good. Stand up. Good. You know, you do a lot I like this clinch work. I thought the clinch work was really good. Not a lot of catch throws, but I thought he did a lot in the clinch. And Barnett looked great. I didn't expect this type of performance being gone for so long. But Barnett kept himself busy. You know, he was doing a lot, you know, did some Meta Morris. He was doing a lot of training for his other fighters at his gym. You know, so he was keeping himself in fight shape. So, you know, I'm not really wasn't that surprised by this performance, but looks like Barnett and Arlovsky probably next from what I'm going to get. From what I'm gathering and from who I've talked to, it seems like that fight will be next.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that Josh Barnett looked good, but I don't think that he looked his best. I think that he looked great physically. He almost had abs. We've never seen that, right? But
no, not at all. Seen a lot of flab, but not abs.
How dare you? No.
Yeah, I love Josh. Josh is a great guy, and Josh will.
Don't let him hear that. Don't let him hear that.
I'll tell him. I've told him. Look great.
I think that Josh Barnett was really concerned about the overhand right of Roy Nelson, and that made him strike a lot differently. He was really, really keeping his hands up to block. He was very, very conscious of it as he moved his head. The way he was able to bob and weave under hooks of Roy Nelson, I really think that he was very concerned with getting hit with that big shot, and he was able to avoid it. I think Josh Barnett's wrestling looked bad. I could not believe that Roy Nelson was taking him down like that. And then when Roy Nelson did take him down, you got the Meta Morris heavyweight champion, the grappling heavyweight champion, laying on his back, stalling. He's a catch wrestler, okay? He's not known for having a bottom game. He's a guy who's good on top. He finishes guys with head and arm chokes. He's got good leg locks. But even just having those good leg locks, I thought maybe he could have created a scramble on the ground, done something, show us something. He just wanted to stall. I think a lot of that was because he was worried about Roy Nelson posturing up and landing some good shots on him, which Roy did, I believe, one time when they were on the ground. But, you know, it wasn't enough for Roy, and it did work out for Josh Barnett. The game plan did work out. They just sort of gave up the first round. They just decided to hang on to Roy and just let the time tick. And, you know, they won 4 out of those 5 rounds, and it was a good fight. And he put on a good fight. Yeah, the elbows were great. The clinch work was great. The pressing Roy into the fence and keeping Roy in that spot where Roy kept allowing it to happen. So you might as well take that real estate. He was doing a great job with that and executing very well. I think that there's a lot of work to do with the wrestling. It looked rusty, and also that bottom game was scaring me. If you got a big wrestler on top of you, a guy like some of the old school UFC guys, Shane Carwin, Brock Lesnar, I don't think that Josh would be a great matchup for those guys, seeing how easy it was for Roy to take him down. With that being said, I do think Josh Barnett still is a very, very legitimate top 10. Is he top 5? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that Junior Dos Santos beats him. Andrei Arlovsky beats him. I'm going to say that Stipe Miocic beats him. I'm going to say Fabricio and Kane beat him. So is he top 10? Yes. Is he top 5? He didn't prove that to me against Roy.
I agree with a lot. Gotta remember he hasn't fought in 21 months. So yeah, you kind of get really – it's hard to – it's more, I think, get the win. And now I think the next fight's the biggest indicator. Am I saying he's going to be heavyweight regain the title? Probably not.
Right.
I wouldn't put my money on it, but I think he's competitive in all those fights because he's got his striking is good enough. His wrestling is really good. But he's known for being on top. Jiu-jitsu's okay. It's not spectacular by any stretch of the imagination. And I was shocked he got taken down
in certain ways, Steve. His jiu-jitsu is spectacular in certain ways. Like his top game. If you have him on top of you, his jiu-jitsu is very, very lethal, and he will finish that fight.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
The difference is when he's on his back, he's so one-dimensional in that aspect. Because when Josh Barnett is on his back, it's I don't want to call him a turtle on his back, but I mean, I really am surprised how a purple belt in jiu-jitsu like Charles Oliveira used to be has so much more techniques that he's showing us on bottom, and the Metamoris heavyweight grappling champion does nothing on bottom. He went for one leg lock, and it got him out of the position he was in. He got taken down. He goes to the leg lock, completely misses the leg lock. Doesn't pinch his knees, doesn't hang on, didn't try a heel hook, didn't try to come back up for a hamstring slicer. It's technically called a calf slicer, but your shin goes over the hamstring. I didn't see any of that in his game. He sort of was a little lacking in the jiu-jitsu chain of techniques in that Roy Nelson fight. And even though I do know a lot about Josh Barnett's grappling style, it was still surprising to me.
Yeah, I thought it was too, and I'm intrigued by what we see next and when he fights next. I think a fight with Arlovsky, makes a lot of sense. You got Miocic and Rothwell coming up. I don't know what they're doing with the title. It seems like now with Fedor doing what Fedor is doing, I think it's going to be Verdum and Velasquez, and I don't know what you do with the winner, Miocic and Rothwell. It looks like Mir keeps campaigning for a fight with Arlovsky. I don't think that happens now, and I think we get Barnett and Arlovsky. So and then you got Dos Santos and Overeem coming up in December at the Fox show. And we'll end with this. And former UFC middleweight champion Rich Franklin called it a career on Monday. He hadn't fought in over 3 years since his loss to Kung Lee in March 2012 in Macau. And a great career, a great ambassador. Your thoughts on the one and only Rich Franklin?
Hey, I love Rich Franklin. I think that he's a really good guy, and I saw that Dana White video that you shared that they put up, and I'm glad the UFC did that, by the way. That was very classy of them, and I think that that Rich deserves that. And I think that Rich Franklin was really a great example. Like Dana was saying, he was the math teacher. He's the guy who I used to use, when people didn't really know a lot about the sport. They were wondering about the athletes. That's the number one guy I would use. I would say, there's, former high school math teacher Rich Franklin is the current middleweight champion, and that gave people a different perspective on the sport. They also used Rich on the air. I remember Rich Franklin, I want to say it was Fox. I can't quite remember, but he was definitely on national television representing the UFC. So I think that he did a lot for the UFC beyond just being their champion for the short time that he was. Big wins in his career. He's beaten, Evan Tanner, all those old fights. He actually beat Vanderlei Silva, Chuck Liddell. He's had a lot of big fights, and Rich Franklin is also just a great person. And, I know that through the grapevine that he was very upset when he heard about Anderson Silva testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs. Do I think that Anderson was on performance-enhancing drugs when he fought him? Who am I to say, right? But I think that Rich is going to go down in history as the guy who Anderson Silva took the title from. How great of a title is that? I mean, at least you're remembered, but that's sort of the fights that he'll be remembered for. I think is those two Anderson Silva fights. The second one actually in his hometown. The second one actually was in Ohio, an even more impressive display, I believe, from Anderson Silva. So I think that Rich goes down as one of those guys who lost to the greatest of all time, sort of gave the title to the greatest, potentially of all time. And there's no shame in that. Rich had a great career, and I like seeing guys hang it up. I don't like seeing guys stay too far after their prime and stick around. That Kung Lee knockout was a brutal, vicious KO. The way that Rich's body hit the canvas was really, really ugly, and I'm glad that he cares about what his mom thinks. If you read any articles recently, and is going to hang him up. He's working for ONE FC, I believe. He's the president of ONE FC right now, and good for him. Hopefully he can stay financially stable the rest of his life, and just stay happy, because I don't think that there was any chance of him coming back into the top 3 of the division, top 5 of the division. So might as well just call it a career at that.
Exactly. And, and thank you to everyone. I wrote a piece on Rich yesterday, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback already on it. And thank you so much for that. And, you think of him, and it's just like you said, Mike, more of an, he's known for the guy that lost Anderson Silva. But like you said earlier, he was, when it was all about thuggery, and it was UFC was still classified, it's just a bunch of thugs. Here you had a math school teacher with a bachelor's degree and a master's in mathematics, former high school math teacher, and he's articulate, saying the right things about the sport, giving people calling it like Bizarro World and the land of the freaks. He really gave it credibility when it really needed. The sport really needed, the company needed credibility at that time, and Rich was that guy where the Mohawks of Chuck Liddell, the Flames, and the FUs from Tito Ortiz, and the in and outs of Randy Couture. Franklin was one of the staples. Clean cut. He was proper. He always said the right thing. A really good ambassador for the sport. Just where he fought too, Canada, China, Ireland. Just some places that China, and places where MMA really hadn't taken a foothold yet. And Franklin was a part of that, being knowledge, giving knowledge about the sport, and, really giving the sport a great name in those countries, and helping globalize the UFC when they really needed it. And, great wins. Evan Tanner, Vanderlei Silva, sent Chuck Liddell viciously into retirement. I thought a good fight with Dan Henderson, even in a loss, but he just one of the good guys. And then, I talked to Rich one time, and very great guy. You couldn't ask for a nicer guy in the sport. And we don't get a lot of nice guys. We don't get a lot of nice stories. Rich was always a nice guy, always had great stories, and he will be missed because, like you said, he's now at ONE FC, the vice president of that organization. He's well off. If he needed the money, Mike, he would have taken that other fight on his contract.
Yeah, no, I could see that.
And I agree with what you said about the punishment, and not enough guys do that. Why take the punishment when you don't need to take it?
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessary. How many shots in the head do you really need to take? You can say that about Roy Nelson. Maybe it's time for, and there was a good piece by my man, Elias Cepeda on foxsports.com, and about Roy Nelson in retirement. I thought that was a really good article, because it's something I think you really have to think about with Roy, and how much is enough.
Right.
And, and Rich realized that, and I give a lot of kudos to him for doing that. And he's riding off into the sunset. Obviously, UFC Hall of Famer, first ballot all the way. A great ambassador for the sport, former world champion, gives the sport a really good name. And I have a feeling at UFC 200, we'll be seeing Rich Franklin get inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. But I'm just going with the hunch.
Okay. I mean, I could see that based on his ambassador position, based on Rich Franklin's ambassador position of the sport.
Okay.
That's how I could see him getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. I think that, you know, the UFC Hall of Fame is an interesting thing because it's like where do you make the call on, like, is Brock Lesnar a Hall of Famer? You know,
absolutely. Don't even start. Oh, you think about that for just a hot minute there. Think about it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm thinking
their hottest period is when he was on top. Just no coincidence now. None whatsoever.
I'm saying where does star power meet actual accolades, right? Why isn't Tim Tebow going to be in the NFL Hall of Fame then? Because that's all people were talking about when Tim Tebow was playing for the Broncos. That's all you heard. That is it. You go to work, people are talking about Tim Tebow praying. You go anywhere, people are talking about Tim Tebow. People are watching the game for Tim Tebow.
Hold on.
Why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? I don't think that's the criteria per se for the Hall of Fame. Brock, Tim Tebow, totally different. Don't.
Totally different sports.
Totally different situations, but similar in the one aspect that I'm trying to say. I'm just asking what the criteria is for the Hall of Fame. For me, it should be what you accomplished. Guys like Anderson Silva, guys like BJ Penn, who fought in many weight classes, guys like Randy Couture. That's who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Even seeing guys who, you know, like Mark Coleman, a father of ground and pound, right? You know, but is he a Hall of Famer? Maybe because of the historical aspect. But again, why are they in the Hall of Fame? There are various reasons around just because their record and what they've done, which should be the primary reason why anybody would make it into the Hall of Fame. It should be your resume. It should be how long you held the title and, you know, who you beat.
I mean, you're not getting a disagreement from me. I agree with that 100%. But if you also look at, this is their Hall of Fame. They can put who they want it. Stephen Bonner's in the goddamn Hall of Fame. What the hell did Stephen Bonner do, man?
That's true. He got an award. Big fight for the UFC, and you know, apparently they really cared about that one.
They did, but that's right. We're gonna have a debate on that when they get to the Hall of Fame time. We will, and when they announce it, probably May. I think when we get to May, I know we'll definitely have more. But I agree with that. I think the criteria should be that is definitely spot on. And I think Rich gets in, former champion, you know, helping grow the sport. I hope he does get in there because I think it is well deserved. But a big weekend, as you said, Mike, UFC 192 Saturday night from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. DC, Daniel Cormier against Alexander Gustafsson for the light heavyweight title. Johnny Hendricks also will be in the co-main event against Tyron Woodley, and then former light heavyweight champ Rashad Evans against perennial contender Ryan Bader. Got Jessica Juliana Pena kicking off the main card on pay-per-view at 10 Eastern. The headlining fight on Fox Sports 1, former title challengers Ali Bagatinov against Joseph Benavidez in flyweight action. And thank you to everybody. You know, we only got 2 videos so far, but the YouTube channel is doing really well. We're getting a lot of people watching and listening. So thank you so much to everyone for doing that. And the podcast, so this will be up shortly. One with Ryan Bader's up. We'll have stuff up with Tyron Woodley, Rashad Evans, and Johnny Hendricks. Will have that stuff up later on in the week. But what else is going on, Mike Finch? What's on cap here for the rest of the week? Podcast on set. We're video podcast Saturday. That's correct.
Sure, let's do it. I mean, I'm doing the Mike Finch Minute right now. So what I'm doing at Illinois Media School is I am putting together a 1-minute YouTube series where I break down and predict a fight. The first one that we actually just shot yesterday is Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm. If you guys want to see my breakdown and prediction of that in 60 seconds, go ahead and go to youtube.com/Mike2Finch. It isn't up at this very moment, but I'll have it up very, very soon. And so you guys could go ahead and check that out. I'm going to continue to add more to my journalist page as well. If you guys want to find me at facebook.com/MikeFinchMMA. And I'm actually going to try to change all my URLs to that Mike Finch MMA. So I'm in that transitional process right now to make it really easy for everybody to find my stuff. But yeah, the the Mike Finch Minute is happening. It's going to be awesome. And also, stay up to date with me and Steve. We'll keep breaking down these fights and giving you guys the right winners. I don't know if you guys are betting, DraftKings, whatever. We're the guys to listen to. We are.
DraftKings.com. I like good guys over there at DraftKings, and be a great weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Definitely let us know, Mike, when I know you were really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to watching that as well. I have stuff up right now. Rich Franklin is up on Sporting News. I was just sent a text. I looked down maybe about 5-10 minutes ago. My piece on Johnny Bones Jones is now up. It is posted, nice and fresh for you guys. So definitely give that a read on. Can Jon Jones keep it together to become the greatest of all time? I have stuff up of the week from all 6 guys in the headlining fights from this coming Saturday's UFC 192. Ryan, the first piece should be up later today with Ryan Bader, so I'll definitely give that a read. And Mike, where can the fans find you? Where can they find our Twitter page and all that other fun stuff that we do have on social media?
Well, we're working on all that right now. You said the Twitter handle is still different, right? If they just look at Fight Game Podcast, it should come up right away. If you look in the search bar, it's at
Fight Game Pod. That is okay. That is right now still the podcast. So that's the same.
/ Fight Game Pod. On Facebook, it's Fight Game Podcast. And of course, for me, Mike Finch MMA, Facebook.com/ Mike Finch MMA. And on YouTube right now, it's still Mike. It's the number 2, and then Finch. It's the number 2 because my dad is also Mike Finch. I'm changing it to Mike Finch MMA, so it's easy for you guys to remember, so you don't have to remember that. But yeah, you guys can go ahead and find us online, find all our stuff, and we also have a SoundCloud as well. So keep up to date with us, guys. We're gonna keep pumping these out. Thanks for watching.
SoundCloud, Fight Game Podcast, iTunes, subscribe, Fight Game Podcast, and the same thing on Stitcher. In the YouTube channel, subscribe. Guys, I'm doing on YouTube. What's that?
I said boom.
Boom. Let's get these. Come on, everyone on Facebook. I sent out like a lot of Facebook requests. We only got 205 as of right now, so let's get this going here. Let's get these numbers up here. I'm a little upset with our fans here, Mike. We need to get on the bandwagon here and definitely start liking the page. But no, we're doing pretty good. Thank you to everyone for listening. We will be having another live podcast coming up this Saturday after UFC 192 from Houston, Texas. So we will not be in Houston. We will be in these same spots. I'm thinking about wearing. I don't know, Mike. I'm thinking about what I'm gonna wear for Saturday. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll have a beer in my hand. I don't know. Maybe a Captain and Coke. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Do the casual style. I'm down. Hey, the first
in the casual mood.
Okay. The first time we did this podcast, I actually wore a dress shirt. I don't know if you remember. I was trying to figure out swag for this, but I'm just kind of going. I'm going nice t-shirt at this point.
But no, you're looking dapper, and thank you to everyone. You can find me on Twitter at SMilhausen MMA, and follow me there on Twitter, and follow all our stuff on Twitter, Facebook, and iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher, and YouTube as well. For the great Mike Finch, I'm Steve Milhausen. We'll talk to you next time.